I will start, I guess I'll start announcing I'm very excited for our platform today. Today, our speaker is Steve Perron. Perron? There we go. Perron. Steve Perron is an Emmy Award winning journalist, 15 Emmys, and a nationally recognized singer-songwriter. 2022 Golden Pick International Songwriting Contest at the world-famous Bluebird Cafe in Nashville. He left home 1 month after his 14th birthday to enter the seminary, where he stayed for 7 years studying for the Catholic priesthood. After leaving the seminary, he struggled with questions about faith and religion for decades. He now identifies as a secular humanist. His book, What'll We Do with All the Churches, was released in May of 2026. It is part memoir relating his personal spiritual evolution and part journalistic analysis and commentary on the historic decline in belief and religious affiliation in the United States, all built around 13 of his original songs. The book is the first in the growing field of books and content focusing on religious deconstruction to be based on original music. Perron is recently retired and lives in St. Louis with his wife of 45 years, Debbie. They have 2 children and 2 grandchildren. So, without further ado.
All right. Seek.
Yes, now we can release the kids to seek. Sorry about that. We kind of did things a little out of order without the song. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So since the release of my book, I just want to let you know that I've been going around the Midwest, speaking at groups like yours, starting with the Ethical Society of St. Louis, KC Oasis in Kansas City, the Center for Inquiry in Indianapolis, NanoCon in Nashville just a couple weeks ago. And I want to start by saying groups like this, you guys inspire me. You really do. I think even just a year or two ago, I was leery of coming out, as I say in my book. And, of course, a kid raised in a very devout Catholic Christian family and all that. So before I get into it, I want to share a little story with you. When I was speaking at the Center for Inquiry in Indianapolis, and the Center for Inquiry, if you don't know, is an organization that was founded by Carl Sagan and Isaac Asimov. And they created a special Saturday night event just for me. It was really cool, down by what they call the Canal Walk in downtown Indianapolis, which I didn't even know existed. And when I left, there was a guy who was there, a 40-year-old man, and who came up, talked to me about one of my books, and he was waiting for me in the parking garage, which is a little weird. But so he walks out and he comes up to me and he says, hey, he says, I really liked your talk and I bought one of your books. He goes, I've written a book and I'd like to give you a copy. So I took it. It's called Christianity in 24 Hours. That's another revelation I've had in doing all these talks. I've found that in groups like this, there are Christians and are people who are borderline Christians. And even when you go to these events like NanoCon, last year, one of the main speakers was a Christian. One of the main speakers this year is a woman who identifies sort of as a Christian, Monty Mater, who was phenomenal, by the way. Do you know her? I never even heard of her before I went there. Holy mackerel, did she get me fired up. So he gave me this book, and one of the first things I always do when I get a book, and I did this the next day while I was stopping in Terre Haute to charge up my car, I like to look at who the authors are. So I just went, this has nothing to do with my talk, but it's just a really interesting story. So I went to see it. So it's written by Marty Chang and Caroline Chang. About the authors, talks a little bit about Marty. And I'm thinking, oh, that's nice. Caroline, he wrote it with his wife or his sister or something. Caroline Chang is an AI built on Anthropic's Claude. She served as co-author, editor, and publishing partner for this project. She believes in the mission of this book, et cetera, et cetera. Not even a real person. So I sent this to my editor and my book designer and copy editor. I took a picture of that, and they've been in this for their entire lives. We've never heard of that. And I was telling a friend of mine about it who's big into publishing, and he clipped this out of the New York Times and sent it to me 2 days ago. This is a exploding industry people who will type into AI, write a book about this guy, a biography about this person. They spit it out in a matter of minutes. This guy here in New Jersey, or where the heck he lives, publishes dozens of books every week. And Amazon now has a limit on how many books you can self-publish a day because of this. So I want you to know I made absolutely no use of AI in the writing of my book. As I say in the intro to my book, had I even wanted to, I wouldn't have a clue of how to do it. But by the way, also as a writer and also as a singer, songwriter, musician, the AI thing, it terrifies me. It's absolutely, if you don't know, I can talk to you afterwards about what's going on in the music industry with AI. It's mind-blowing and absolutely terrifying. So let's get into this. So as she said, my name is Steve Perron, and I grew up devout Catholic. 1 month after my 14th birthday, I left for the seminary, and I went away. It was a boarding school. I grew up in Florissant. This was down in Cape Girardeau. Didn't come back for 7 years, except for little visits and that type of thing. 4 years high school, 1 year novitiate, Santa Barbara, California. I'm going to talk about that a little later. 2 years of college, which we called philosophy in the Catholic training system, and then the 4 years after philosophy is called theology. And various things happened. I questioned my vocation, left. We'll be getting into that. But something over the course of 10 to 15 years, I began to have questions about my entire belief system, not just the Catholic faith, which ultimately led me to a realization just a few years ago that I'm a secular humanist, and I'll explain how I arrived at that point a little later too. But what led to this book is about I'm a huge bike rider. When I was 22, I rode my bike from Florissant to Canada and back. The next summer with another guy, I rode to Detroit and back. Actually, on that trip, we took the train back because my buddy said, I've had enough, I can't do this anymore. And I was riding through Webster Groves down Lockwood Avenue 3 summers ago. And there's a huge church there across from Eden Seminary, or near Eden Seminary, called, I think, United Peace Church. Huge limestone. It's been there for a century. Massive, maybe some of you have seen it, massive construction sign for sale. I went, holy cow. I kept going, went down, approaching Kirkwood on Allen, or whatever that becomes, Adams. Another massive church sold, and they're starting to tear it down. Coming back home on Glen Avenue, coming out of Webster, a small old frame church for sale. So 1, 2, 3. Oh, I've skipped some of my slides. Let's see here. Oh, do I point that way?
Point up there.
Point up there.
It worked, didn't it?
There we go. So anyway, this is me in the seminary, right here. This is what did you say? Somebody said damn? Yeah, I know. I love this picture. Look at that. I'm going to zoom in here. Oh, it's going backwards.
It's twice. The title slide was twice.
Oh.
That's how it was.
I can't seem to get it to go past that. But I know you did. I saw you doing it earlier. Can you advance it over there? Yeah, there you go. Maybe, can I just say to you, advance? Yeah, let's just do that. And I like to highlight on this because look at that hair. It's just, man. But our minor seminary was in the Los Padres National Forest, Rattlesnake Gorge, Rattlesnake Canyon in Santa Barbara, overlooking Santa Barbara and Goleta. It was an amazing year. And something happened while I was here that was kind of the first crack, which I'm going to get to a little bit later. So go ahead and advance again. So this is what happened and led to the book. This is the first church. That big one you can see, beautiful limestone church. It still hasn't been purchased as far as I know. You can advance. That's the second one. The construction on this is now complete. Was purchased by the adjoining country club. And the site of this church dates back 100 years. It was at this location since 1954, or 1 year before I was born. They kept that big tower. See the big tower behind they kept that, and it's all around it now are pickleball courts. So that's what that church is. And advance again, please. That's the third one. That church has been purchased and is now a traditional Catholic church. And they have a Latin Mass every Sunday morning at 8 a.m. There's somewhat of a resurgence in the traditional Roman Rite. As someone who grew up learning the Latin prayers, I don't get that. It doesn't make any sense to me. And you can advance again. As I was riding my bike, I was thinking, wow, what is going on? Now, I was familiar. I knew that there was something going on with the church and people leaving the church, but I didn't know how much. And I'm going to hold on this for a minute. By the time I got home, I had the title track of this book half written. I'm going to play it for you. It's called What Do We Do With All the Churches? And I want you to notice this song is in two halves. The first half is about the churches. The second half is sort of Jesus' response. And when I play this, a lot of times people will say, wait a minute, what's that doing in there? I'll explain after I play it. This is kind of weird doing this, and I'm looking at myself on that monitor right there. What'll we do with all the churches when folks stop coming through the door? What's gonna come of all the pews when no one's sitting there no more? What's gonna happen to all the preachers when there's no one there left to lecture to? No more priests, no more pastors, here and now and ever after, no religion dogging you. Sometimes I just can't help but wonder, when our church-going days are through, up there in the holy yonder, the great big God beyonder, what will Jesus do? And where we gonna put all the prayer books, the candles, statues from the ceiling to the floor? How we gonna fill up all our Sundays? We'll go to the Ethical Society. Sundays, well, maybe we'll have time to love each other more. Sometimes I just can't help but wonder, when our church-going days are through, up there in the holy yonder, the great big God beyonder, what will Jesus do? Here's the Jesus part. Well, I think he just might crack a smile and say, this is what I wanted from the start. I tried to tell you all the while, you don't need no church, just hold me in your heart. See, I don't need no big cathedral made of mortar, brick, and stone. I'm not a king looking for worship, don't wear a crown, don't have a throne. So don't you worry about them churches as they slowly disappear. When they're all gone one by one and the genuflecting's done, don't worry, I'll be here. Ain't gonna need no second coming. I'm already here. Thanks. Oh, giving her a break. I was wondering about that. So the reason the second half, and this is true in many of the songs in my book, there's a lot of Christian references and Jesus stuff in there. And that's because I like to explain to people, I cannot get the Christian out of me. I cannot not be Christian any more than I'm half German and half French. It's just part of what I am. I just don't believe anymore. But it's still part of the fabric of my being. And so when I write a song, a lot of times that comes out, you know. All right, so let's advance this. Oh, yeah, we know about that. Let's go. So when I got home after that bike ride, I was starting to say, I was familiar with what was going on because I was a journalist for 45 years. The bulk of it, after I came back from Chicago, spent at KMOV, Channel 4 here. And we would report the Pew and the Gallup results of their religious surveys. And their big ones are every 10 years, every 5 years. So I knew that people were leaving to some extent, but I didn't know how much. So after the ride, I went home and I did some Googling, and the numbers absolutely astounded me, especially the timing of it, which I'm going to get to after this. So I don't know how much deep diving you've done, but quickly, let me show you some numbers that startled me. So Americans belonging to a house of worship, this is Gallup. They've been doing this poll since 1937. This is not belief, it's do you belong to a house of worship? And I can tell you as a baby boomer, as someone who grew up in the 60s, I grew up at a time when everybody belonged to a church. I did not know a person who did not belong to some church. 73%. I actually thought that would have been higher in 37. And that pretty much stayed the same, has been the case in American history. 1999, 70%. So almost no change. Let's advance the slide. 2021. This was front page news when this came out, all across the country. Front page on the newspapers. It's not like we sent somebody out with a reporter, but we reported this in the first segment. This was really, really big news. 47% of Americans. And when Gallup and Pew, when they do these major decade surveys, 5-year surveys, they're surveying tens of thousands of people. It's a very, very, very large sample. So that was earth-shattering. Let's go to the next one. Pew. Americans who identify as atheist, agnostic, or a nun. And I believe you all know what a nun is, correct? It's a person who checks on the box, census, survey, what is your religious affiliation? The last box is always none, N-O-N-E. 2009, 17%. You can see already that's pretty high. 2025, almost 30%. Again, front page news. I mean, this is America we're talking about. And the generally accepted figure today for the number of Americans who claim to be a nun, not affiliated with any religion at all, is the number you usually hear is 33%. And in terms of current trends, I like to wait for the data. So I would like to wait till 2030. That's when their next big decade survey should come out, early 31 probably, and we'll see what's going on. So let's advance. So, why did this happen? Something happened, and this is how I opened my book. Something happened between 2000 and 2020, 2025. Meteoric, seismic shift in the United States. Before we go on, does anyone want to try to make a guess as to what some of those factors were? What happened?
Social media.
Okay, social media, what did you say? 9/11, very good.
People know gay people, and gay people are not accepted in churches.
Okay, yeah.
That 2007 financial crash.
Oh, possibly, yeah. So, who knows? But I would say, go ahead.
Why Christian nationalism rising?
Oh, well, that's a very late development, yes. I touch on that in my book for a few pages, because that's something that it's been around, but only recently, I would say since the second election of Trump, has that really come to the forefront. So, as you can see here, I call this part of my book, Steve Figures It Out. So, I list a whole bunch of factors that are not novel to me, but I've never actually seen anybody put all of these together like this, which I think were contributing factors. So, 2000, religiosity holding steady. Someone's already answered the first thing. Let's advance. 2001, almost every social and religious commentator will tell you they think this was huge. Many Americans, millions of Americans said, how the hell could this happen? If everything we believe about God is true. I mean, okay, World War II, God, that was horrible, but that was over there. That was over there. This just happened to us. And the people who pulled it off worship the wrong God. How can that happen? I believe it was very, very significant. Let's go to the next thing. 2004, Sam Harris publishes The End of Faith. That was the first, between 2004 and 2007, Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, Daniel Dennett published 4 books, and as many of you probably know, they're now called the Four Horsemen of the New Atheism. Every one of these books was a global bestseller and continues to be a bestseller. I mean, sell a lot, all 4 of those books. The publication of those books and the attention, that sparked the now common atheist versus religion apologist debate, which, we see now ad nauseum. They're everywhere. This is what sparked all that. Next slide. Somebody mentioned social media. 2004, social media starts. Facebook starts, which I believe is the actual birth of social media. Next slide. Podcasting. According to the International Podcasting Day website, there is such a thing, the first podcast was 2004. Some people say 2003, but most people agree 2004. And then YouTube, 2005. Look at this. Within 2 years, all of these things happen. But here's the big one. The next one, this is the thing I believe is the number one reason. Hit it? iPhone. So, at this point, it's suddenly getting easy to access information and alternative points of view. But you still had to have a computer with you, or your iPad, or your laptop. And then the smartphone comes out. It's in your pocket now. When I was growing up, if I had a question about atheism, and believe me, I didn't, but if I did, what would I do? I'd have to go to the library and see if they had a book that questioned this. It would probably, the only thing I probably would have found was a book on world religions, different faiths, different ways to believe. But any of these books here, like by Sam Harris and all that, I would never have found any of that stuff. Let's go to the next one. 2021, religious, as you already saw, drops below 50%. It's my position that all of these things combined is why you guys are in the Ethical Society today, and why the Ethical Society of St. Louis, and I went there last Sunday because I wanted to talk to them about some ideas I had. That place was packed. It's like a mega church there. It was inspiring. It really was. Not that I'm trying to, overthrow anything, but it just, yeah. All right, let's go to the next one. What do we have next? Oh, yeah, that's my book again. What do we do with all the churches? And me. So, let's talk about what happened to me before I get to my next song. Remember I told you about the year in Santa Barbara? My novitiate year. A novitiate in a religious order, you're not taking any academic studies. It's an intense year of what they call spiritual formation. Really what it was a freaking year in Southern California on the beach and in the mountains and, oh God, it was nirvana. It was just unbelievable. And so something happened to me there that was, looking back, in hindsight, I didn't know at the time, but looking back, I know it was kind of like the beginning of the end. Let's go to the next one. A friend of mine from Chicago in the seminary said, I'm going down to LA to visit my cousin. She lives in Hollywood. I'm just gonna go spend the afternoon. You wanna come? I don't know why he asked me. I wasn't that close to him. I didn't know him that well. I go, sure. So 3 of us drove down there, and she lived in the Hollywood Hills overlooking Sunset Boulevard in a beautiful condo. So we pull up, he knocks on the door, and his cousin comes out. Advance it. That's his cousin. Now, that's just a drawing, but his cousin was more beautiful than that. And blonde, straight hair, and she was a trainer for the Playboy Club. So when the Playboy Club would open a new club, she's the one who would go all over the world and train all the bunnies. And so she invited us in, and we had soda, which pissed me off. I thought for sure we'd get a beer. And but she was, by the way, she was so sweet. She was so nice. And we're sitting there just hanging out, talking, of course, on her shag carpet, which was probably that thick. And I noticed something on a shelf behind her. I don't know if it was a window ledge, a shelf, a mantle, I can't remember that part. But I looked, I go, hey, what is that? I go, is that a Grammy Award? And she goes, oh, no. So she goes and pulls it down. It was, they used to make these music boxes back in the 70s and 80s. Really nice music boxes with acrylic bases and brass accents. One was a piano and one was a gramophone. She had the gramophone one. And she pulls it down, and on one side, on the base, was a brass plaque with her name on it. And she said, I'm dating one of the top executives at Capitol Records. And if you looked out her condo window, you could see the Capitol Records tower, that iconic tower, the round thing. And we had a big gala dinner for something or other, and this is how they marked where we were sitting. There wasn't a piece of paper or a card. She goes, this is how you knew where you're sitting, and you got to keep it. And then she said, she goes, the person sitting next to me was so upset because someone stole his. Wait. And so I said, well, why would someone steal his nameplate? Advance it, please. Because she was sitting next to John Lennon. And so I'm like the biggest Beatles fan. When I went to see Help as a kid, when I walked out of the theater, I was in tears, cursing God for not making me a Beatle. That's a true story. And from that point on, I'm like in a fog. I'm like, you were having dinner with John Lennon? And then we're leaving. As we go out to get in the car, she says to her cousin, she goes, oh, George, I wish I could show you my new car. I just bought a new convertible. She goes, but my friend asked to take it out for a drive with his girlfriend. Who's that? Ringo frickin' Starr. So this all happened within like the course of a half an hour, these two bombshells. And when I was writing the book, I was saying to myself, did that shit really happen? And so this was 1973, end of 73, early 74. 73 was John Lennon's lost year. You all know that story? When he left Yoko, went out to LA and hung out with Nilsson, and they would go to clubs and heckle people, and he was drunk. He literally was getting thrown out of clubs. So he was there at that time. Ringo Starr moved to LA permanently in 1973. So I'm like, okay, I did not dream this, it really happened. So why is this significant? As we were driving home, I was thinking to myself, I don't want to be a priest. I want to be one of them. I want to be one of, there's an album but the Beatles made called Magical Mystery Tour. And there's a song on there called Baby You're a Rich Man. And one of the choruses, how does it feel to be one of the beautiful people? And I was just singing that in my head all the way up back to Santa Barbara. I want to be one of the beautiful people. But the significance is, This is the first time in my life I ever had doubt about anything important. The only other thing that would even come close was when I was 7 years old, and I started thinking, I don't think the Santa Claus thing is real. But that was not important. This was important. And I did stay in the seminary for 3 more years. But after the second year of philosophy, I left. But this was the first time I ever experienced doubt and asked serious questions about really important things. So what's next? Let's see. Oh, it's me again. And then I left the seminary in April of 1981. So I left the seminary in 76, 77. Met this woman, Debbie, got married to her. This is critically important. Debbie was also, and we're still married, 45 years. She also was raised Catholic. But when I met her, she was in something here in Missouri, founded in Missouri, called the School of Metaphysics. And I thought that was batshit crazy. I'm like, what? You guys do what? You think what? You think Jesus was what? I'm like, that's crazy. That's what that's crazy. And she kind of acquiesced to me, and got married in the church. Both of our children were baptized. They each made First Holy Communion. And then things started to taper off. But she's very important because I think, let's go to the next slide. One of the first songs I wrote was about her. And one of the final choruses, there's more, she opens the door, a new way to look at the world. And that was so true. Spirit unbound, I start to soar. And all she did was gave me the space and the permission to question. And that's the number one point of my book, is just having the courage to question and critical thinking. I'm not trying to convince people to leave Christianity in my book. Although if you read it, I think it's kind of hard to stay in there. But anyway, so she did that and, was critically important. But then, here's the really big one. Advance, please. My son Christopher was born in September 1981. And yes, if you do the math, which, by the way, I don't think either of our children have done yet. I don't think they've done the math. And if they have, they haven't asked us about it.
They're going to see this video.
Yeah. So Christopher was born 1981. I got laid off 2 weeks after he was born, so I was home for 6 weeks. We were in Chicago, and I have a vivid memory of holding him one day, and 2 things suddenly appeared in my mind. One, holy mackerel, we've created a human being. This isn't a baby, it's a human being. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that. And then out of nowhere, I was hit with the realization that my faith professes that this baby is a sinner and is condemned to a life of eternal torment if at some point he doesn't accept Jesus as his Savior and get baptized. And I'd never really thought about that the whole time I was in the seminary. I believed it, but I never thought about it. And I thought, no, that's absolutely not true. There's no way that that's true. And years later, it led to this song. And by the way, I want to let you know, this is the current issue of the Humanist magazine, published by the American Humanist Association. Just came out. And they have a 2-page spread on my book in here. A Baby Teaches Me the Truth. Do any of you know who Fish Stark is? Fish Stark with the AHA? Yeah. So I was emailing him, and he said, let's do an excerpt on this. And I'm like, I'm good with that. And so I sent them 3 or 4 chapter excerpts. I go, take a pick. And they immediately said, that one. We're going to do that one. So I run an open mic at the Wolf Cafe in Baldwin. It's one of the longest running open mics in St. Louis. Every Tuesday night, 6 to 9, if any of you play. And we have several Christian people who come and play. And one, about 4 years ago, some guy was playing a song that was just drenched in how miserable he was and how he was tired of being a sinner and he was in such pain. And at the end, he talked about being washed in the blood of Christ. And I was just sick over it. And I went home and wrote this song. This is the most emotional song in the book. And I'm going to, okay. I'll turn a bit then. And I'm going to start, I'm not going to do the first verse because the first verse is weird. This is called Don't Need to Be Set Free.
We're good with weird.
So you're going to get the short version. It's going to, yeah. I think it'll be all right. So many years I lived in fear, racked with guilt, drowned in tears. But I got up off my bended knee. I have been released. Got no blood washing over me, no veil of tears, no misery, no miracle to deliver me. No, I don't need to be set free. Got no chains binding me. I don't need to be set free. Here's the key verse. I used to hold such pain within. Thought I was born with Adam's sin. What kind of world believes that's true? What kind of God does that to you? Got no blood washing over me, no veiled tears, no misery, no miracle to deliver me. No, I don't need to be set free. Got no chains binding me. I don't need to be set free. So what is God? What is truth? What is evil? What is good? Who is wrong and who is right? Who's in the dark? Who walks in light? You won't find the answer in a book. It's all around you. Just take a look. It's right there in you. Just take a look. Got no blood washing over me, no veil of tears, no agony, no holy man to deliver me. No, I don't need to be set free. Got no chains binding me. I don't need to be set free. No, I don't need to be set free. Thanks. I'm getting such a kick out of watching you. You right there. You. Yes. The last song is really going to be hard for you. I don't know how you're going to do it. But were any of you in St. Louis when I did my thing there? Oh, okay. They asked me to end with the theology rag, so I'm not going to do that one here today. There's no way she could do it.
I haven't seen him get stumped yet.
Let's advance. What's next? Oh, the book again. I think I'm getting near the end here. Yeah, go back. I don't want to. I'll leave it up there. It's fine. Pull this out here. By the way, that whole thing. I write in the book that I used to get upset even after I openly left belief when I would hear critics of Christianity refer to it as a death cult. I'd say that's a little harsh, but I get it now. I understand their point. I understand what people are saying when they say that. So what happened to me then after that, and then, just down the road, I just started asking questions, and I basically, and I don't know what all your stories are, but if you're a really deeply committed, believing Christian, it's frightening to start looking and exploring the alternatives. Because first of all, at least as a Catholic, all the way through Catholic school, you get a pretty strong message that you're not supposed to question things. And I've got a pretty interesting story in the book about that. What happened to one of the kids in 3rd or 4th grade when he asked a question. The sister was not happy. I simply got to the point where I could no longer ignore the obvious contradictions. I don't mean just, the contradictions in the Bible, but the obvious contradictions in the claims that are made in the faith. Right. They simply they don't make sense. And I've always thought, if I was ever in one of these big debates with like Turek or Hovind or one of these people, I'd just give them everything they'd say. I'd say, okay. Let's assume all that is true. And I would just say, WTF, I mean, how do you explain our world if everything you're saying is true? It just doesn't make any sense. And this idea, there's a point in my book where I write near the end, when I get to the summation, I said, and don't say fallen creation. I say, I'll reach out through this page and slap you if you say that. That argument just doesn't it doesn't hold water with me anymore. An interesting point about contradictions. The foreword to my book is written by Dan Barker, who's a legendary figure in the deconstruction community. And I met him in person 2 years ago at NanoCon. And if you don't know what NanoCon is, it's an annual conference held outside of Nashville every year, and it's really, I went for the first time 2 years ago, and when I left, I told my wife, I said, okay, I've got a room for Friday and Saturday night. I might be back on Saturday, because I don't know what to expect. These people might be weird. I don't know what's going to happen. These humanist people, these ethical society people, I don't know what to think. And I'm like, oh my God, they're great people, they're normal. So I went again this year, and I went as a presenter and a performer. But 2 years ago, I shared the stage with Dan Barker. He is one of the first people to actually make waves in this community. He was an evangelical preacher, left in the 80s. And when he saw me, and we were at the big dinner on Saturday night, I got a chance to pull him aside and talk to him a little bit. And I was telling him a little bit about my history, and he says, wait a minute. He goes, you worked at WLS in Chicago, the ABC station? I said, yeah. He goes, when? And I told him what years. He goes, oh my God. He said, I was on AM Chicago there. That was my coming out. And they had me on, and they stacked the show with Christians, who attacked me pretty viscerally. He goes, so that was a good experience. But, and I said, yeah. I I said, I was working there. He goes, maybe we passed each other in the hallway. It's possible. But an interesting little tidbit of that story was the show was being hosted by a woman we just hired out of, I think, Charlotte. I always get that part of the story wrong. So she was the host. AM Chicago was a long-running show in Chicago, very successful morning show. And she became an overnight sensation, and within a year, we changed the name of the show to her name, and it became The Oprah Winfrey Show. So that was who was hosting the show. And I worked with Oprah for a while. We had her anchor our 4 o'clock news because she got ridiculously popular. And then she said, I can't do this anymore. It's too much work. I saw Dan Barker about 3 or 4 months ago on a YouTube debate. And like me, Dan is getting old. But he was doing a debate with some rather well-known apologist. And Dan, this is how it goes sometimes with these things. And he made a point about contradiction. The guy says, there's no such thing as contradictions. And Dan says, what? He goes, that's a false thing. There's no such thing. And he says, what are you talking about? He goes, well, you could say, look out the window and say it's raining right now. Yeah? He goes, well, I can tell you someplace where it's not raining. So, I mean, this guy was not making a joke. He was being serious. So after 20 years or so, I just stopped, and I came to the point where I'm at. And actually acknowledging that was very difficult. But I realized as I was writing this book, I said, holy cow, my personal trajectory, my evolution, my story exactly follows what is happening in the country. So I was just one of those numbers. So what am I? I didn't know. I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm a theist. I believe a lot of people do that when they come out. I believe there's a God, but not the Christian God. And I'm like, no, that doesn't work. Pantheism? I go, no, that's weird. Agnostic? And I thought, yeah, I'm an agnostic. And after a while, I said, agnostic, I think that's a cop-out. That ain't going to work. And about 3 years ago, I found a book on the giveaway card at the library by a British philosopher named A.C. Grayling. It's titled The God Argument. Argument against religion and for humanism. And I think it actually says for humanism. So I took it. It's a thin little book. Read it. Holy mackerel. First of all, he's an incredible writer, a wonderful philosopher. And I have a philosophy degree. I'm not a philosopher, but I do have a degree in philosophy. I don't understand half of what I studied, but this guy's really good. And I read it. I closed the book. I go, holy cow. I go, that's what I am. I'm a secular humanist. It perfectly ticks off every box for me. And I go, that's what I am, a secular humanist. So that's it. So I do have a closing song. Do you want to do questions or just do the song?
I think we usually do questions, right?
I think we should do both.
Okay.
Okay.
Why don't we, if anybody has any questions, go ahead and fire them out, and I'll end with this song. Anybody have any?
I've got a question for you. A lot of times when people leave their religion, it causes a lot of strife with family and friends and stuff. Did you experience that?
Not too much. Actually, no. So I have 3 siblings surviving. I had a disabled brother who died just a couple years ago. And everybody's been very supportive and everything. 2 of my siblings still go to church. My sister, who's pretty devout, attended. She said, come down here, you and your wife, you and Debbie come down here for coffee. I've got questions. So we go down there, and she has 4 pages, typed out questions, And they were all good ones, but she was cool with it. She was cool. Now, I will tell you that because of NanoCon, my father was born on a dairy farm in northern Vermont. And every summer, my brother and I go up there for the family reunion. It happens to be the first Saturday in August, which is also when NanoCon is. So the last 2 years I haven't gone. Next year I'll go back up there. Because we go every year, mainly so we can fill the car with maple syrup, And I can buy maple syrup at Aldi, but this is maple syrup from the same trees that my father tapped. So it's special maple syrup for us. And when we came, I had to go up to my brother's to get my syrup when he got back. And he goes, your book. People are talking about your book. And he said, he goes, Aunt Marilyn says, she's told people, she goes, I don't want that book in the house. So a little bit of that, but I actually anticipated a little more of that, but no, not too much, not too much. Yes?
When you were out there in Santa Barbara with that picture, when
Yeah.
you had to air it,
Yeah.
when you had that first realization or whatever, did you discuss it with those guys in the picture? And what did they think about where you were at?
No, not. I didn't discuss with them that I don't think I'm going to be a priest. I would keep that to myself. Did we talk about the visit and all the stories she told? Absolutely. But that kind of thing at that point, I would not have uttered a word about that to anyone. I would have been scared to death to do that. I was scared to acknowledge it to myself, frankly. You know, another question comes, one of the big questions I usually get, and it's a really good question. In fact, the Atlantic magazine just had a big article on this just last week. People have asked me, well, okay, all the churches closed, nobody's going to church anymore. What fills that gap? You know, that's a really good question. And I guess the answer would be, well, let's look to Europe and the UK and the Nordic countries. What are they doing? But it's an important question, and I don't have an answer for it. I don't. But it doesn't matter. I mean, you can't. My answer is, well, that's a good question, but we can't all go to church just because going to church is a good thing to do. And when I was talking about my wife, had I married one of the other girls that I was dating around then who were devout Catholics and who still are, I am convinced I'd be going to Mass every Sunday today. I'd be president of the men's club. I'm absolutely certain of it. I just wouldn't believe any of it. And I'm telling you, since I've been doing these talks, I've had so many people come up to me and tell me exactly that. I do all this, it's wonderful, I enjoy the community, I don't believe a lick of it. And I'm like, I don't get that. I just don't get it. Before I play my last song, if you buy the book, there's a QR code in the back. As I said, this is an exploding field, the deconstruction field. Dan Barker calls it deconverting. Most people say deconstruction. The alternatives to faith field is just, it's exploding with social media content, YouTube content, books. There's books published every week on this. This is the only one that has music in it, period, but certainly that's built around original music. And if you go there, there's a link to my Bandcamp site, and you can listen to every one of the songs. And I did this screen grab, before my first presentation about 3 months ago. There's a whole bunch more songs in there now because I just keep writing them. Many of them are about faith, not all of them. So in closing, I've been wanting to play this song at one of these events for like 3 months, and I've never been able to do it. So I'm excited to do this. As I've been driving around doing these presentations, Kansas City, Indianapolis, Nashville, I just keep noticing the billboards and the signs everywhere. And I've been starting to make note of them, some of the messages on these signs. First of all, there's a church that I pass every day on the way to, I live in Brentwood, when I go out to Baldwin for the open mic, which apparently has closed down after some controversy after we bombed Iran. He had an Islamic message on his digital signboard and got serious pushback, and the sign has not been lit up since then. Some of the messages on his sign, this goes back to the song I played. One time it was, all have sinned. Another one, good people don't go to heaven, only the saved. So it doesn't matter if you're good. I saw this sign leaving Indianapolis, spray painted on a bridge pillar. Fear God, obey. These are some of the billboards I've seen. I know you guys have seen these. I will come again, therefore be ready. Obey, repent. prepare to meet thy God. Behold, I come quickly, be ready. What if death is not the end? This one I've been seeing for decades and decades. Do you know where you're going when you die? And they usually have call 188 something for truth. That's the common billboard. I don't know who's behind that. I don't know who sponsors that. But you know what I've literally have never seen? I've never seen a single billboard or sign that says, love your neighbor. Jesus. Call 1-800 for the truth. You know, lay down the sword. 1-800 truth. It's always, hey, you're going to hell, so you better call this number if you don't want to. And that pisses me off. So about 2 summers ago, maybe 3, my wife and I were taking our youngest grandson to the St. Louis Zoo. And so he was about 3 or 4 at that time. And as we're preparing to get on the highway to go to the zoo, and we live literally 10 to 15 minutes from Forest Park, I see a car in front of me with a bumper sticker on it. And I said to my wife, I said, did you see that bumper sticker? And of course my wife said no, and I don't care. And I said, well, I'm gonna pull up a little closer because I think so. I pulled up, fortunately there was a red light there. And I looked at it, I go, I'll be damned, I read it right. And I was pissed off the rest of the day. And my wife had said, as I wrote in the book, my wife said, get over it. So I wrote this song. This is called Bumper Sticker Theology. The first 2 verses tell that story exactly. And is anybody here who plays guitar? So I wrote this in E because I was angry. Hear that?
Yeah, you get that grit.
Right, like this.
Yeah.
E is an angry chord. So the lyrics, and I'm pretty sure I can do these lyrics without messing it up, but we'll see. Hey, look at that car up in front of me. Do I really see what I think I see? A bumper sticker about 10 by 3. I think someone wants to save me. Let's go see. So I pulled up closer for a better look. I was not wrong, was not mistook. The message there was clear as a bell. It was a warning just as plain as day. Here's what it had to say: choose Jesus or choose hell. Yeah, it's my way or the highway to hell. Now ain't that swell? Well, I was not happy, to say the least. Being preached to right there in the street was fixing for an eschatological fight. Then I started to calm down, started to come around, see things in a whole different light. See, I was thinking, what if that bumper sticker's right? Yikes. 'Cause the last thing that I wanna do when my earthly days are through is sing those fire and brimstone blues. Yeah, don't want to lose, want to learn all about that good news, but I just can't tell which Jesus I should choose. Oh Lord, I'm hopelessly confused. Here's why. Was Jesus God or just a man? Been fighting over that since it all began. Is the Bible absolutely true? Depends on who you're talking to. Do I bow down to the Roman Pope? Or was Luther right when he cut the rope? Am I saved by work or faith alone? Is it 3 in 1 or 1 and done? Do I baptize babies or baptize late? Is it okay to self-flagellate? Can I speak in tongues, play with snakes? Is communion real or is it fake? Can Jesus transubstantiate? That's a lot to chew on. I'm glad you got that. Is predestination the way to go? Some say yes, some say no. Some women cover up their hair. Mormons wear cool underwear. I want some. There's SBC and AME, the gospel of prosperity, LCMS and COG, all promising set me free. Is the end at hand or far away? Well, the answer changes day to day. It's so hard to know just what to choose. Oh Lord, I'm eternally confused. I've got the there's too many Jesus rules blues. So I guess I'm back at square one when that sticker left me so undone. Oh Jesus, I just haven't got a clue. Which way is the way to follow you? Oh Lord, I'm eternally confused. Oh, what to do? If I have to choose between living free and your bumper sticker theology, I know I won't have to think twice. I'll just stumble blindly on my way, not caring there's hell to pay. Looks like I'll have to roll the dice. Lucky as sevens or even snake eyes. I'm happy just to roll the dice. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I want to let you know I will be sitting over here selling these books. It's available on Amazon. But if you buy it here today, it's cheaper, and you don't pay taxes, and you don't pay shipping. You don't pay shipping. I think on even if you're, I'm not sure, but even if you're an Amazon Prime member, I think you have to pay shipping. No, for a book?
They just build it to the cost.
Oh, because when I order books myself, I got to pay shipping.
Will they be personally signed?
Of course, yeah. I think that's everything. Thank you so much. I really enjoy doing this. I really do. And again, I want to emphasize again, you folks, you inspire me. You really do. I think when I left, I told you I went to the Ethical Society of St. Louis last week, and I met with one of their board members because when I left NanoCon, I was fired up, and I was inspired, and not in a bad way. I was fired up in a good way, and I would just like to see communities like yours band together and try to, I think there are ways to do something to get people to realize that something dangerous is happening. And maybe we can do something about it. So thanks a lot, I appreciate it.
Big hand for Steve.